Welcome and thanks for joining us today. I've been talking a lot in the last year actually, but last several weeks about preparedness and community gathering and what that looks like. Why you want to start focusing on your local outreach, your local communities, your local networking, and really the important part to get started is how you structure that. What you're looking for is in regards to building that network out and what kind of what kind of expertise you want to have on board as far as people that are volunteering, because at the end of the day this is all volunteer. These are all people that want to come together, organize, make their communities better, but also prepare for what may come. And what I say is what will come, because it is coming. So today I'm talking to a really cool guy named TJ Morris. He's involved in a lot of things, and he's really paving the way on a lot of what I want to try to accomplish in this space. But he is a voice among many other voices who is leading the way on this effort. And so, TJ, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Sam. And
Yeah, absolutely.
if you hear random stuff in the background, that's because I'm at my Refuge Medical office today, and we're manufacturing stuff 4 or 5 meters from where I'm sitting. So apologies. Um,
So,
so
tell us about yourself and tell us what you're involved in.
I'm a normal guy. I live in Oklahoma by choice. Used to live in North Texas. Prior to that, you know, 38 to lower 48. Have lived and worked and been all over the place. And so I'm the founder and CEO of Refuge Medical. We manufacture American made first aid kits using Americans here in America. I make content on the internet, Bear Independent YouTube channel and Patreon page. Never thought I'd be doing that. Had really no interest in sharing my voice with anyone. But I watched a Canadian prepper video 8 years ago and was like, this is terrible information. People are going to get killed. And so my wife basically said, hey, either make a video correcting his information or shut up about it. And so I did.
That's fair.
Been doing that for about 8 years now. I'm also the founder and chairman of the board of both Grindstone Ministries, which is a pro bono disaster relief agency. Take zero federal dollars because I don't want to play federal games, and also Kaleb House. And Kaleb House is active in the counter trafficking space, both on the conviction side, rescue side, but also the recovery side as far as putting these kiddos back together again. And that's also privately supported because with federal money, you got to play federal games, and I'm not interested in that.
No, you bring up an important point with that, because I'm involved in Remnant Ministries, and we'll talk about that in a second. As far as your past work with Doc Pete Chambers, who is running for governor of Texas, but when you talk about that not taking federal funds, we've obviously crossed that same path as well. And you're right, you have to play those games if you take federal funds. And fact of the matter is a lot of these federal entities are they want things from you. They want something to benefit themselves instead of just sole purpose of benefiting these children. And then at the end of the day, you pop up on their radar as something that they can control. And the fact of the matter is there are elements within our government that are complicit in trafficking. That makes it very difficult. So yeah, spot on.
I
Um,
concur.
tell me, just since I brought it up, tell me about your past work with Doc Chambers.
So we ran into Doc, I think literally ran into Doc during the Central Texas flooding. He was down there. He was issuing phenomenal intel reports morning and evening, and I was following him on X. And then our executive director, Kyle Minyard, I was able to put the two of them together, and I was personally not in Texas when all that was going down, but I was kind of back here behind the scenes facilitating, if you will. And as a result, Grindstone was able to bring our volunteer labor and our we've got heavy equipment, we've got network, we've got intel, we've got commo, all this stuff, and bring that to the chaos that was that Texas flood. And coordinating with Doc with the intel that he was collecting in order to make all that stuff happen. And then we've also bumped into each other on the counter trafficking side as well. I think, Sam, when you and I first spoke, you're like, yeah, I work with Doc. I was like, that's cool. But I've texted him a few times. We text on occasion. And so, you know, what you find is there's a lot of people that talk about doing stuff, and there's a much smaller group of people that just do stuff and that maybe aren't that great at talking about it. Hold on.
Well, that's good. That's good content.
Sorry, like I said, we
You're
are
good.
making things I apologize, for everybody who just got their eardrums blasted out, my bad. Um, but yeah, Doc, is somebody who's doing things, and, as a former Texan, my family's been in Texas for 200 years. Morris County is named after my great-great-granddaddy, okay? So I reserve the right to talk shit about Texas, and I willingly left Texas about 8 years ago, because I was unimpressed with the direction that it was headed, and frankly, I think Texas would be much better served with Doc Pete Chambers than it is with the current administration.
Well, I agree. Um, yeah, and we've I don't think people understand. I was talking to a former boss of mine yesterday, as a matter of fact. I was asking if he'd be a reference for something, and he was saying that he's generally been okay with Abbott, and I brought up some issues, and he was just unaware of things, and I think a lot of folks are just blissfully unaware of the destruction that's been done to this state. And yeah, you can laud the um, the economic gamesmanship that Abbott has played, because he has done a phenomenal job building the economy. But to what extent? What does it matter if you have the greatest economy in the world, but your people are suffering? If your people are not safe, if you have all of these problems at the, I'll just call it the grassroots level, but at the everyday citizens level, what does it matter if you have the eighth best economy in the world, but it sucks to live here for all of these different issues? You can't even afford a house. And so, yeah, it's a problem.
Well, I think that actually dovetails into community preparedness because a lot of people, the normies, if you will, suffer from normalcy bias. That could never happen here. That's not going to be a problem. And preparedness, there's this whole crowd in preparedness where it's, doomer porn and just waiting for the zombie apocalypse.
Hmm.
Well, look at the flooding that just happened in Texas. You know what I mean? It's one of the things with Grindstone. We are there to meet people who are experiencing the worst day that they've ever had at scale. Thousands upon thousands of people, a dozen states across the country thus far, and they just got back from Jamaica. Just had a team come back from Jamaica. So, yeah, that's preparedness. And why do I need a community for that? Well, when you lose everything, you are now the proud owner of a concrete slab. You have nothing but the clothes on your back, maybe. It's going to take other people to help you. And the government has historically been terrible at this. 20 years ago, I did some disaster contracting for FEMA after Hurricane Helene. And I worked around at that time, it was called the Gulf of Mexico, from the Florida Keys, westward, all the way around to East Texas over the course of about 10 months. And I was so incredibly unimpressed with the governmental response to that storm. It was like, never again. Not only that, but as a debris hauler, uh, depending on depending on what debris we were hauling, vegetative debris, meaning used to be trees. That stuff paid $1.50 a cubic yard. And C&D, which is construction and demolition, that was paying $6 a cubic yard. The prime contract for C&D was $170 a cubic yard. Yeah. And by the time it got down through 4 layers of bureaucracy and subcontractors, by the time it got to us, we were getting $6 a cubic yard. Um, and this is how the government runs things. So when you've got some reps and sets of dealing with people that have lost everything, they have no food, no shelter, no water, no communication, no medical, no logistical, no infrastructure, no transportation. They're just stuck. And then you see the government's response to that, regardless of what the external stimulus is, whether it's a storm or the Chinese are invading or whatever it might be. You need people and you need a modicum of preparedness to weather whatever the storm actual or parable might be. And there's just a lot of normalcy bias. There's a lot of people you brought up. You're talking with an old boss that hadn't seen these things about Abbott. Uh, People don't generally see what they don't want to see. They're blissfully unaware. They like to keep the blinders on, and then what happens is life sucker punches them, and it takes somebody from the outside to come in here and help put them back together again. And the government ain't it. They don't do it. And what efforts they do make is it costs a ton of money, and it's severely ineffective. It's always been the grassroots people on the ground that get stuff done. Um, so yeah, just from
You're right.
community. Go ahead.
That's one of the things I talked to Doc about, and that's what he plans on doing as governor. We should not be creating this bloated infrastructure of bureaucracy where you, like you said, that 4 levels higher that doesn't even have a say in anything, but is collecting this huge paycheck and then subbing it down to folks. That shouldn't be how we respond to things. We should go direct to that guy that has a bulldozer and say, "What do you need to make it happen? All right, get your machines out there. Here's the money you need. We're going direct with you," instead of sourcing this out to all of these other people who catch a paycheck off of somebody else's misery. That
Mhm.
is, and that will happen. That's one of Doc's policy stances. So
Well, during Hurricane Helene, in Appalachia, we were out there. We couldn't get into Western North Carolina because the governor, I mean, we did, but legally, we couldn't get into Western North Carolina because the governor was dragging his feet on declaring a state of emergency. And so we were in Eastern Tennessee, right on the Nolichucky River. The other side of the river is North Carolina. We could see it. And, they weren't letting people in to North Carolina. Okay. 50 plus percent of the infrastructure, roads and bridges was gone. And so it's already a difficult area to navigate. Now take away half the roads and the bridges. All right, well, we have boats and we have helos. Let's just go there. And so we did. And we got in a bunch of, that was unappreciated by North Carolina state leadership and in some cases federal leadership.
they
Um,
can't win politics off of it.
yeah. But it was FEMA that was manning the roadblocks to keep help out. Hey, that's not your job, homie, right? You're
No,
here to help people. And it took the locals. um, it didn't quite make it into the OSINT reporting, but let's just say that in many cases, the locals violently ejected FEMA, uh, interdicted their roadblocks, and opened the roads back up again
it was
to get
insane.
help
And I
moving.
remember the kind of stories. Even when I went out there, um, we were out there on the ground for a couple months, and they were they were putting out all of this trash reporting about how local militias were attacking them and all kinds of other stuff. And it was all made up nonsense. You had citizens that were coming out there and were they were handling business, and they were ensuring that government bureaucracy was not stopping those that aid and that assistance from coming in. But as far as like hunting down agents and stuff like that, it was just all made up nonsense. It was just garbage to create this narrative. And and so not only did we see blockades from the government and FEMA impeding the assistance, but they were actively creating stories and trying to create some sort of dystopian uh, fiction where they could pit they could pit people against each other, and pit those who didn't have correct information from all outside that area against the locals and try to control that narrative. And it's disgusting when you watch it play out.
Well, the attempt at narrative shaping, in my in my estimation, having been there as well, totally blew up in their faces. I don't know what they were thinking that they were going to get grassroots support from the federal government trying to craft that narrative. I mean, good old boys in the hill country. Yeah, who everybody loves an underdog. Most people do not. I think what's the average approval of Congress right now? 12, 14%, right? So you're the Federal Emergency Management Agency trying to craft this narrative that you're the sob story. You're the one being victimized here.
Right.
Well, okay, sure. There's just been unprecedented flooding in Appalachia. We've got people that are cut off. I mean, man, we were flying in insulin to people. We established we called it the Ho Chi Musk Trail, so we could smuggle in
Nice.
Starlinks to people so that they could have commo, so they could tell us what they needed. I don't know
The
if you
Ho Chi
experienced
Musk
this.
Trail, man. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Um, I mean, you're familiar with the topography there, right? And
Yeah.
in many
Yeah.
cases, it's just foot access. So we're just
Yep.
throwing stuff in rucksacks and marching it in. Um, and then where we were doing helo drops, the state of North Carolina said, "Hey, this is now military and law enforcement airspace only," because they didn't want us using our aircraft in order to go over there and provide to their people because they wanted the credit for it. Which who cares about credit, right? And this is the beauty when you're not competing for funding, the credit doesn't matter. You just do the right thing for the right reasons.
That should be the only reason, right? And and I remember several sites getting strong armed, several drop off points getting strong armed and taken over by FEMA because they wanted to control the donated supplies. They were not their supplies. So there was this issue with FEMA getting stuff sourced in the first place. And instead of purchasing the items outside the state, what they were doing is they were going in and raiding the stores, which affected the citizens who were still there living there. They couldn't go in and buy stuff. And then they were controlling the distribution points. So folks who were getting distribution from outside the state from donors, they were going in there and strong arming them and taking over the distribution points and then saying the government provided this for you. No,
Mhm.
you didn't. You didn't provide anything. You didn't set this up. You didn't source any of this logistical stuff. And then, I had we had one organization we were working with who basically took up arms, and these guys were all out there with AR-15s pulling their own security. They were a legal security
Mhm.
contractor, and they were manning a large distribution point, but they had FEMA show up and they're like, hey, we're looking into this. We're going to be taking over different sites, and they're like, no, you're not. No, you're
Yep.
not. We're running this,
We've
and we know who to get it to.
we've run into that same thing countless times all across the country, regardless of what the storm might be. It's just a matter of time before that appropriation of civilian resources, which goes back to community preparedness. Why, right? Um,
Yes.
yeah, and so uh, your vibe attracts your tribe. I'd say probably 60%, if not three quarters, of our volunteer base are all prior service. And it's really easy to tell these dudes with clipboards when they show up and they're like, we're here to take your inventory. No, you're not. You pound sand, get out. And I'm thankful for that because we've had, we've run into that dozens of times. And one of the things that I started saying during the time of COVID was flex your no muscle. And you can just look at somebody and tell them no, and it works.
Yes. You
They'll
sure
go
can.
away.
You sure can. And that that has been our saving grace, is to have a lot of these pipe hitters out there doing this kind of work. Some of the some of the best volunteers we've had, besides your local mom and pop just want to do the right thing folks, you have a lot of volunteers coming from outside the state, and these are veterans. These are guys who have experience in um, navigation and getting across very difficult terrain. A lot of special ops type folks, guys who have experience in the infantry, you name it. And they've been the ones who, same thing. They want to do the right thing. They're not getting paid for this. They go in there, and having them on ground and having that experience and that backbone to tell the government, pound sand, like you said, get out. You are doing everything wrong, and then you're doing it for the wrong reasons at that. Even if you wanted to take credit for this, fine. Go ahead and take your credit. But the fact that you come in and you ruin our sites, you ruin our efforts, and then you want to take credit for it when we are here, like putting our lives on the line, literally putting their lives on the line, pound
Mhm.
sand, get out.
I'm thankful for all of it. And it's having a community like that that is versed in teamwork, if you will, right? Like,
Mhm.
hey, here's the mission, go. And all the pieces and the parts start to just fall into place. And there's a commonality of capability and understanding. It allows you, it shortens the run up, the spin up to getting stuff done. And so with community preparedness, if you're in a neighborhood, right? Most people are in neighborhoods, 80% of the country's population lives urban and suburban. And even in rural areas, you have neighborhoods. It's just the distance in between houses is farther. If you're in a neighborhood, if you can identify who are the assets in your neighborhood, who are the guys and girls in your neighborhood that are are kind of squared away and they do show up when somebody needs a hand, whatever that might look like, and then begin to coordinate with them. A lot of times preparedness, it's like, yeah, man, you got to have this many guns and this many rounds of ammo and buy this, buy that, buy. It's like, can you network? Can you throw like a block party and invite everybody over, or just have some coffee, or just hang out and begin the planning process? Because if like a plan is better than no plan, whatever that might look like, because the stuff is, it's pretty reasonable, man. You need some food, you need some water, you need a way to defend yourself, probably some batteries and a radio, and you can make hay out of that, right? That could be 1,000 different pieces of content on what exactly it is that you need. But why do you need it? Well, for me, it's my definition of preparedness is to perpetuate normalcy for the people that I love. Well, how big is that
That's good.
circle, right?
Perpetuate normalcy for the people I love. I'm gonna quote that. That's good.
Send it. And so, my pastor likes to say, you can take the measure of a man by how big of a circle he draws around himself, right? And so all of us as men, if you're a father and a husband, that's your immediate circle right there. You are biblically responsible for those people. Like it or not, those are your responsibility. And it should be an honor and a blessing for you to provide for, protect, and bless those people. Cool. Well, once you get that squared away, you can start drawing larger circles around yourself. Whether this is my neighborhood or my church community or my county or my city, whatever it might be, because the stuff remains the same. Even the TTPs, tactics, techniques, procedures, they all remain the same. They just scale up and down depending on how big the circle is around us. But it takes a minimum number of people. Like at a minimum, I gotta have, you know, four, like 12. How about Dunbar's number of 150? 150 is a good number of people. That's historically the number of people that you would find in a village. It's enough people that they could maintain genetic diversification and engage in um, standardized labor, general labor, as well as specialized labor. And so everybody could plant a garden, but also the guy, if you needed a horseshoe, there's a blacksmith, that kind of thing, right? And so we think, well, 150, that's a lot of people. It's like 30 average American families or one end of your neighborhood, if you think about it like that. So it's actually not that many people. And if zoom back from 150 and just say you got three households, you and two other households, it's about 15 people on average. Okay. You can do a lot with three, right? Foundation for fire and maneuver, a book of Ecclesiastes, a three-stranded cord is not easily broken.
Hmm.
We can now break into watches if we need to. Our general labor, hey man, the latrine, it's full. We got to move the potty. Okay, dig a hole. Or We got to peel these potatoes. Or could you look over that way? I need you to, this is your sector. Look over there for the next 2 hours. Thank you. Or whatever it might be. And so it's pretty low hanging fruit, honestly, to identify two other families that you could do life with to perpetuate normalcy for the people that you love. And then this becomes the sifting mechanism, the differentiator between those that think that they want it and those that actually want it. Because those that think that they want it will talk about how hard it is to find two other families to do life with. Those that actually want it, man, they're already taking notes right now as they're listening to this, and they're already thinking in their brain, identifying who is it that I'm going to have a conversation with today.
I'm doing
I'm
that
going to
right
reach out
now.
to that person today.
Yep. So let me ask you this, and then I want to get right back to what you're talking about because this is the critical stuff. What is coming?
My goodness, brother. Um, it doesn't matter which data set that I look at. Everything appears to be on about a 12-month timeline. So much so that I've begun to refer to this as everything everywhere all at once. Um, Now, there's all caveats and asterisks all over this. There's varying levels of confidence in these assessments. Um, we are entering a season for war. That should be obvious to everybody that there is. I think that the reason that Trump is trying to make peace with Ukraine, with Russia in Ukraine, is because the United States is going to back out of NATO because NATO is a net loss for us as far as an investment. It cost us more than we gained from it, which means that Europe is going to fight Russia in Ukraine, and likely Europe's going to lose in Ukraine. So, anyway, Putin gets everything probably east of the Dnipro River, and then Europe becomes the economic zone for Russia, and also demography is a thing here because European demography and Russian demography are both in the toilet. All of that being done, hopefully that the agreement here will be with this peace agreement with Russia, that when the United States gets involved with China, that Russia will sit on the sidelines so that we don't have to fight Russia and China at the same time. What you're seeing happen in South America right now, we just had an amazing op in Venezuela to bring Maduro to the Southern District of New York to stand trial for his crimes against America. Um, that's an effort at resources. War is a game of resources. Typically, people go to war because they've exhausted political means by which to trade resources. And so, and we're likely to fight China, not because we want to, but because China is experiencing an existential crisis. The one child policy has been terrible for them. They're going to not have enough people within a decade in order to be able to perpetuate a war. So this is existential for them. They either go or they cease to exist. The whole talk is over Taiwan. China, Taiwan, we're not going to let them take Taiwan. Taiwan is covered for action for something much bigger, the East China Sea, South China Sea, and really this whole Pacific Rim region. China's goal is to be the lone world superpower. Well, that's currently the United States of America. So in order for there to be a lone world superpower, China's going to have to fight the United States of America. The means and methods by which they do that, some of which are classified, but suffice to say, they are assessed to launch a significant attack that stretches from the Chinese homeland to the western coast of the United States of America, which will also then be the observable sign, the signal for other current domestic bad actors here, be they Chinese in origin or, Biden let a lot of people across our porous southern border. We also left a couple $1 billion worth of material and infrastructure in Afghanistan, and a lot of that has come home to roost as well. So, and then let's just talk about the economic situation that we're in right now. Oh, silver's pushing, as of the time of this recording, $80 an ounce again. Silver's not up, the dollar is down. And now it takes $80 to buy 1 ounce of silver. When I started buying silver, it was $12 an ounce. I think it was about $40 an ounce at this time, 2025. So it's doubled in value in the last 12 months. What that really means is the dollar has lost that much purchasing power in the last 12 months. The Fed opened up its overnight, I forget what they call it, but it's basically liquidity that they inject into banks in order to settle debts for banks. and it's running at record highs. It's running more now than it was during the time of COVID. So we have liquidity problems because we have financial problems. We have currency problems because we have resource problems. And so historically, when all this stacks up, there's conflict. And there's likely to be conflict, not just around the world, over in Europe, North Africa, Southeast Asia, South America, but also in the United States as well. And this is one of the things that most Americans simply cannot wrap their mind around because for the last 100 years, war is something that has happened over there. It didn't happen here in the American homeland. And see, when we talk about like 9/11 2.0, that's a piece of it. And that one data set is enough that it should have people paying attention and be preemptively preparing for something bad like that to happen. That's just one layer of the lasagna, bro. There's a dozen other layers of the lasagna that are all terrible. And lastly, I'll say this. We just saw in Venezuela that during this attack, Trump alluded to this. We have capabilities. We turned off their electrical grid. Okay.
Pretty good.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So they did. They turned off the electrical grid. How? Well, that's highly classified. Suffice to say,
Sure is.
as somebody who's built a significant portion of the United States electrical grid, our enemies have the same capability. Department of Energy put a white paper out 5 years ago where they assessed in the first 30 days, 1/3 of Americans would be dead. They'd be dead. Oh my gosh.
That was
Hold on
perfect
1 minute.
timing.
That was
Perfect
perfect.
timing. Love this construction going on because it adds a
Okay.
little bit of flair to the show.
I apologize. If you ever invite me back, I'll be in a studio.
Oh, you're good.
I'm at work right now. So,
We do this when we can, where we can.
so DOE assesses 1/3 of Americans dead in the first 30 days, grid down. 90% of Americans dead in 1 year. And when you stop and think about that, the modern American existence is predicated on the successful flow of electrons, all of it. You live in Texas. One of my favorite graphs is look at the population of Texas year over year, and then put next to it the development of air conditioning technology. They are the same graph, okay? As air conditioning got better, more people moved to Texas year over year over year. So you take away the grid, your utilities don't work. There's no water treatment plant. There's no stand towers for water. There's no fuel coming out of the ground at the gas station. There's no refrigeration, which means there's no grocery stores. Hospitals shut down. This is one of the things, my gosh, this is one of the things that people don't realize. Well, hospitals have backup generators. Yes, for running the ICU and the NICU if they have it. But that's it. So they stop triage. There's no ER. There's no OR. There's no elective procedures. All that goes away. If there's no grid, there's no combo. I saw this in Hurricane Michael in Florida. Law enforcement, EMS, and fire all stayed home. They stayed home because they couldn't communicate. And so they weren't going to go out into the community because they couldn't guarantee the safety of their officers. So in that case, all the cops went to HQ. They brought all their families there. They parked all the cruisers inside the gates. They literally closed the gates and they stayed inside for 11 days.
And they created their own community right there.
And as a result, the community outside of there that typically is dependent upon emergency services had none. And it was warfare. The people were getting shot in the face over 5-gallon gas cans for 11 days.
Yeah, so let's spread that over, and I'm gonna play devil's advocate. I obviously know the answer, but I want you to talk about it. So what happens? What happens in any country at any period in time in history when the resources run out and somebody has a family to feed, has mouths to feed? What do they do at that point?
They compromise their morals and their ethics, and people act upon one another, and it becomes a competition for resources. And that's one of the things. If you live in a place right now, again, 80% of Americans live either in urban or suburban environments. Those areas are net consumers of resources. They're not producers of resources. They're net consumers of resources. If you can strategically relocate, if you've been thinking about buying that farm out in the countryside, now's a great time. If you can't, this goes back to network. Who do I know that has that piece of land out in the hill country, or they've got, that ranch out in West Texas or whatever, East Texas, Piney Woods, whatever it could be. Okay. Who do I know? Is there a place that I could go that has a lower population density, that is a net producer of resources, not consumer of resources? Because again, it's a game of resources, and people that don't have food, water, medicine, they act upon one another, and people get victimized. So your only choice there is to act or be acted upon. It gets really bad really quickly. And then if you add in any element of a governmental authoritarian regime that limits the population's ability to move, forces them to stay here, it becomes just a boiling pot of abominations.
Talk
It-
about warlords.
oh, yeah, 100%. So what do warlords do, right? They're going to act upon the populace. They're going to, they take from people, they take resources, they control areas, they control people, which are all resources, and it becomes competition, and they start to feed against one another. The violence goes through the roof, um, and it gets real ugly real fast. Then they expand out from there. After having consumed the resources that are in this area, they now necessarily have to expand their territory to claim more resources to support the, uh, call it the staff that they have garnered, right? Pay their guys, feed their people, and it spills out from there. It's You just don't want to be in a high population density place for very long. And if you currently live there, which is okay, I would be thinking about how do I get somewhere else? And they control access and egress, right? And everything is grift. Think about when Hamas is running Palestine, right? All the food aid that was sent over there, 90+% of it never actually got to the people. Regardless of where you stand in the Israel Hamas thing, the fact of the matter is 90% of the aid that was sent, just like FEMA in Appalachia, 90% of the aid that was sent to the people in Palestine never ended up getting to the people because of the amount of grift. So,
Yeah, and the only rule of law at that point becomes who is more violent, who has who has the strength, and just flat out might makes right. And
mhm.
that's what happens in that scenario. And so everything you're describing is it points me back to what you were talking about earlier. What do people do now? How do they start to build their security networks? What is the base foundation for that?
So I think in general, Americans need to get better at having uncomfortable conversations. And I would identify people to have uncomfortable conversations. Uncomfortable doesn't mean bad, but start asking yourself, what if, right? Take the blinders off. What if just the power turned off, stayed off? It was, a couple years ago when it got cold down in Texas,
Yeah.
power went off.
We
And
had people in our house. We were taking people in, and they were sleeping in rooms, and we were throwing blankets on everything. That's a reality.
because you had a pre existing relationship, pre
Mhm.
existing network, right? So start wargaming that now. Where am I going? When? With whom? And with what? Man, I would figure that out right now. And ideally, I've got answers to those questions north, south, east, and west of wherever it is that I am right now. And then you get into staying power. How long can I stay here? Well, that all depends on how long whatever this thing is goes. You know, I mean, there's areas of there's not a single place we've worked with Grindstone that a year later doesn't still have places that look like the storm happened yesterday. Right. So people move. That's a whole nother thing, man. Most people, I'm never leaving. Yeah, you are. If the house next to you is on fire and it's coming for your house, you're leaving. Right there, or it's flooding, you're leaving. So that flood could be people, bad actors as well, flooding towards you. You need to have a plan to go. Typically, this is called bugging out, and people get wrapped around the axles on this. What do I need to take? Man, throw some useful stuff in a backpack. There's infinity YouTube videos on what goes in a bug out bag, right? There's books written on the subject. It's sustainment, it's life support stuff, it's basic stuff. But more importantly, have a plan to go and have those conversations with that network now so that we can mutually support one another. If it gets bad at my place, I'm going to go over here to my buddy's place. If it gets bad at his place, he's going to come over here to my place. And this is also key. Once you develop that network, don't just talk about it. Start training together so you develop that context, rapport, that dwell time. I'm sure you understand, but I've got plenty of brothers here. It could be 3 o'clock in the morning, pitch black, and we could be moving in the middle of the night. We don't have to talk. I can tell just from his body language exactly what he's about to do because the amount of time that we've spent together. There's no replacement for investing that time to build those relationships because it creates that cohesion that allows you to weather these storms together, whatever the storm might look like. So, action steps, start having uncomfortable conversations with your spouse, with your friends, and audit your own capabilities. Because it's one thing to think that I could do this, but can you actually? I used to do this at least once a year when we lived in the suburbs, mostly because I see my kids getting a little soft and it would annoy me. It's called the Main Breaker Challenge. We lived in Texas. Doesn't matter the season. You walk to the main electrical breaker in your house and you turn it off Friday afternoon and you don't turn it back on until Sunday evening. That's it.
Kind of
Oh,
gangster, actually.
and you learn so much, right?
Sure.
Right? Oh, I need to put batteries in the headlamp. I got to stay warm. How are we going to cook food? And and if it ever actually becomes critical, I just can't take it anymore, you flip the breaker back on and resolve to do better next time. It's easy. It costs nothing. And it's a very gentle way to begin to pressure test your assumptions because the assumptions don't actually mean anything if you can't do it. And so we want to build the data set with yourself so that you're a trustworthy witness with yourself that when you need to do these things, you can. And then for me, I like type 3 fun. You increase the amount of suffering beyond that until you're just doing stuff that's absolutely terrible with people that you love with a smile on your face. And it's like, well, if we can do this, we're probably going to make it. It's going to be okay.
What as far as expertise, so you're talking about that village of 150 people. Let's just say you have that. Let's say you have that 150 person number. What do you want to see among that population of people as far as expertise?
It's a great question. I call this the militant farmer concept. And so, as far as general labor, everybody needs to know how to work a rifle and a shovel. So that should be pressed down all service member level. Everybody knows how to do that. So basically, every responsible teenager and up, as long as they're physically capable, understands the agricultural side of this, because again, food production is important. Also, the construction side of this, dig a latrine. It's not that complicated, but if you do it wrong, people get sick. Right? There's 5 vectors for disease: flies, fingers, feces, food, and fluids. Okay. Well, none of those things should ever touch. The whole goal is to keep all of those things separate because if they touch, people get sick, which means 5 foot shovel. And I've met some people, I love them, but they don't know which end of a shovel to hold. Okay. So we need to start figuring that out. Then we go to rifle, like basic marksmanship. What's our target? Get a paper plate. Just that's it. You go to Walmart, Sam's Club, whatever, get a paper plate, put it out at 300 meters and be able to reliably hit that paper plate from all positions, standing, kneeling, seated, prone, reliably, day and night, 300 meters. One key terrain feature away, and most people can't shoot beyond 300 meters. So if you can hit it 300 meters and everybody else can't, okay, we're good. And I didn't come up with that. That comes from a guy named Saw. He's got a YouTube channel, Survival Applications and Weapons Systems, that we've
Oh,
done a
that's
fair
good.
bit of training with. That's his standard, and it's an excellent standard. But that should be pressed down to everybody understands this stuff, and nobody here has an ego that's too big, so that we can all peel potatoes when we need to, and we can all pull guard duty or whatever it is. Beyond that, specialization. Communications is important, less for transmission, more for receive, because there's a huge intelligence value to be able to monitor the airwaves. And so somebody should know how to do that. And then obviously, I own Refuge Medical. I'm a big fan of medical stuff. We teach everybody from literally grandmas to literally Navy SEALs how to do tactical medicine. That's what we do. And so everybody should know bleeding control. Take a basic stop the bleed class and then build up from there. Well aimed direct pressure, tourniquets, wound packing. And then the explain like I'm 5 version on punctures to the pleural spaces, you just put a chest seal on it. But then we got to elevate, right? So we want medical professionals as well. And more importantly, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. I don't want to go get in a gunfight with somebody over grandpa's moldy graham crackers because I don't have any food and have 3 of my guys get shot, stabbed, blown up because we're desperate when I could have just put a little bit of food back and not had to accept that risk in the first place. Because now I got to go explain to this guy's wife that the reason she doesn't have a husband anymore is because I failed to adequately prepare. And now we're taking risks that we shouldn't have had to take. That's all stupid to me. But as far as specialization of labor, food production, medicine, yeah, on the security side, you can definitely go deeper than how do I hit a paper plate at 300. I think also often overlooked is logistics. That's really important because people move, resources move. 3 days into the war in Ukraine, Russia had a 40-mile long column of armor that ran out of diesel fuel. That's logistics.
Yeah.
And so, you know, if you have a garage or a shed or a barn or whatever it is, can we put some shelves up and put some back stock of stuff that we all already consume? We already eat mac and cheese or whatever it is, right? I'm going to go a little deep on mac and cheese this month or whatever it might be. Can I have a few gas cans, whatever it might be? Because those are all enablers for people for the preservation of life so that I can maintain normalcy to the best of my ability for the people that I love.
Well, and I don't even know how to follow up on that. That's brilliant. What I want to talk about probably finally, because there's a lot to digest here, and even me, I'm a little bit overwhelmed by the amount of expertise and amount of insight you've brought to this conversation. One of the things that we focused on in a community group that I was involved in was IPB, which is intelligence preparation of the battlefield, and that is making sure that everybody understands what your AO is, your area of operations, so that you understand those ingress and egress routes. You understand where people are going to come from, how they're going to maneuver, how they're going to come in and try to steal your stuff and do something to affect you, how to mitigate that, how to set up those blockades and to have that level of security so that you can control your AO. You have any insight on that?
100%. So, doing an area study, um, the first thing I want to know, again, concentric circles. Let's start with who are my immediate neighbors and then move out from there, right? To within a day's journey on foot. Start with that. I don't need to know everything that's in my county immediately. That's nice to know. But right now, who's going to immediately act and or be acted upon? These people that I'm closest to. Um, you should already know who your neighbors are. And if they're good people, you should know them well. And if they're bad people, you should be aware of how particularly bad they are because they're more likely to act after an event like this. Lines of drift come to mind. Where do people go? They tend to go down in elevation, not up. People don't tend to climb uphill. Um, they like improved roads, then unimproved roads, and then trails, least likely. And so they're going to congregate on roads. And, you
We
hear
see
a
that
lot.
even in the military. I mean,
Mhm.
even when we're doing a land nav course, they'll tell you you'll get penalized for going out on an improved road. And it's just our natural inclination to head towards that improved area. And you've got to get that out of your mindset. Hey, how can I maneuver where others are not going to be congregating and potentially cause me harm?
Yeah. And where can I be that others aren't going to be? And even if that's just a little bit of standoff, I mean, out here at Fort Chaffee, we were doing Op 4 one day for NSW, Naval Special Warfare out there. And it's a long story, but we put an ambush on them and they did their react to contact, immediate action drills, and they're working on their casualties. And so they press out a perimeter and they've got a guy laying behind a belt fed 6 feet from me on the other side of a bush. And I'm crouched down on one knee holding this AK full of blanks. And for like 20 minutes, man. And every time he'd wiggle, I'd wiggle just to get a little bit of blood back into my feet. And then finally, their CO, okay, let's prepare to move. And they start moving out. And the guy walks right through the bush, him and 2 guys behind him. And I pop up and just start drilling him. And the TRADAC guy, the controller, Everybody's surprised. And then we all start screaming at each other. We were 6 feet away from each other. Okay. I could smell his Copenhagen long cut. All right. On the other side of this bush. A little, just a little bit of standoff, man. What can I put in between me and the bad thing, whatever it might be? And so the other thing with people, so all, and this is key, all systems devolve into man portable systems. And so if you have the cool bug out vehicle, the truck, the trailer, I got my Jeep, it's up on 39s, and I got fuel for it, stuff breaks. All systems devolve into man portable systems. And so
Watch any
whatever,
dystopian movie ever.
yeah, 100%. And so if you have that 100-pound rucksack, but you never walk with it, nah, it's not going to help you. Um, but in man portable systems, watch people move. It's funny how afraid of water people are, right? And so even if it's a creek or a stream, whatever it is, even if it's passable on foot, normal people will not cross it. They'll walk next to it before they'll go across it. And then if they do cross, they'll cross at the most narrow path. You're already wet. Okay. So if it's 5 yards wide or 25 yards wide, I don't care. My feet are already wet. We're in the water, back out of the water. So that's lines of drift, right? I want to understand what the lines of drift are. Um, I definitely want to know where the bad actors are in my area. I want to know who produces resources, who, not because I intend to take from them. Thou shalt not steal. I'm big on that biblical stuff. But the guy that's got 100 head of cattle and him and his wife live there, he's not going to need 100 head of cattle if this all goes to pot and we need to band together as a community. In fact, he's probably going to need help working his 100 head of cattle. And so can me and some of the boys go over there and give him a hand for that, help him with that in exchange for when it's time to butcher one of these cows, we can help with that too. Because if you've ever butchered a cow, it's a lot of work. And as a result, I might get some tomahawk ribeyes out of this deal. So area familiarity is, I want to understand the area that I'm operating in, who's already here. Um, Politically, the people who are currently in power tend to remain in power during a time of crisis. And they're generally not very good. It's very rare that I see some kind of local elected official that just totally rises to the top and is extremely competent. They do exist. There's a handful of them that I've had the honor to interact with, but by and large, they were not great at their job before the crisis, and they just get worse by the day after the crisis. I would also 100% expect that within 72 hours, there will be no emergency services. So just get that out of your head right now, because even if the emergency services intend to operate in your area, they lose the capability. Even if they have, wherever they are, they have electricity, they have fuel, they have water. What happens in a crisis is all hands on deck and everybody works a 24-hour shift. And then they try to go to shift work 12s after that. And by day 3, 72 hours in, everybody's smoked and there's zero coverage. There's no law enforcement, no fire, no EMS. It doesn't exist. And so I would prepare for by day 3, if not sooner, there's just not going to be any governmental official response because the capability doesn't exist anymore. So if you live in an area that currently has its normalcy maintained by the presence of emergency services, expect that to go away.
That makes sense. And yeah, even after that, you talked about the resources they have. At some point within that first week, people are going to start eyeballing those resources, and so either they're going to be guarding them or they're already going to be taken. So yeah, the EMS is going to be gone. Emergency services is going to be gone very, very quickly. Um, no, that's there is so much stuff to prepare for, but let's let's close this out by getting back to the basics. The stuff you were talking about as far as meet your neighbors, block parties. Can you organize a meetup to have coffee? Just just hit us with the basics again and how important that is to start preparing now.
Sure. So Ecclesiastes, a three-stranded cord is not easily broken, right? Well, I'm one of those. Let's find 2 more. Ideally, geographically local to me, the closer the better. However, within a reasonable distance. what's reasonable. It depends on the external stimulus, but man, within 15 minutes of each other is great. If it's farther out than that, so be it. Um, what we need as far as capability stacking is really basic. It's food, water, shelter, med, um, you know, commo, logistics, fuel. So now that I have some people that I can coordinate with, and how I'm bad at fishing. I'm just not good at it. My wife's excellent at it. We got a rule. If it's got fur or feathers, I'll handle it. If it's got gills and scales, she handles it. Right. But say you're going to go fishing. Well, you have to have the appropriate bait in the appropriate location at the appropriate time in order to catch that fish. So your vibe attracts your tribe. If you're looking for people who are into preparedness, where do you go to find them? Well, I don't know. There's preparedness festivals in every state in the nation at least once a year. You can go to Self Reliance Festival. You can go to Kentucky Sustainable Living. You can go Midwestern Preparedness Project or any of these other places where there are people who are into this stuff already. Okay. It's the right place, right time, right bait. And then vibe check these people. We want, at least for me, we need critical alignment in the things that are most important to us. I'm a person of deep faith. And so it's not that people who aren't people of deep faith are bad people. They're just not my people. And the reason for that is I want us all playing by the same rule book. And by that, I mean the Bible. And so if we can agree that this is the rule book and we're going to try and love our neighbor as ourselves, that's going to help us with conflict resolution substantially because it's just a matter of time before it comes up. And it's easier, significantly easier to train skill set than it is to train mindset and heart set. I can't make somebody be convicted. I can't make them want it. I can teach them all kinds of other stuff, but I can't make them be bought in. So just when you're looking at people, where do I go? You go to the right lake or the right stream with the right bait at the right time, and then have a conversation. I know it's hard for the introverted people. Just go talk to people and you're going to get a vibe from them. I like that guy. Okay. It's like dating, bro. What do you do? I really like this girl. Okay. You should ask her out. And you ask her out. She said yes. What do we do? Go get dinner. Okay. Then what? Do it again and do it again and do it again. And sooner or later, you'll fall in love. Right. And then you do life together. It's the
I
same thing.
I will say just for those who might need a little bit of guidance on this, if you're an introvert, don't walk up to somebody and say, "What do you think about prepping? And what do you think about storing food?" No, stop. Forget all that until you made best friends with the person and you're having conversations over, over a glass of whiskey someday. Just have a conversation about the weather or about sports or about something normal. Okay. That's that's how
That's
you approach
that's
somebody.
fair. I'm terrible at foreplay. I'm like really, really bad. But I agree with you because it can come off as weird. It's like, you know, give me a percentage chance that China nukes North America. It's like, hi, great to meet you, you know?
Right.
Um, but yeah, just it's like dating. Like, you know that you're weird. Just don't be overly weird on the first date, right?
Yeah.
Maybe
Right.
third date, fourth date, but on the first date, dress nice, act normal. Maybe you can trick this lady into falling in love with you kind of thing. It's the same thing. It's dating, but for people. Because if you think about it, a marriage is a covenantal relationship, mutually supporting one another from a prepared, as community preparedness. It doesn't rise to the same threshold as marriage does, but man, if something happens to me, these homies that I got are going to make sure that my family's taken care of. If something happens to them, I'm going to do the same for them. And so it's definitely an agreement that requires that high amount of ideological alignment. And so I want to find the right people. And that's how it's like dating. You go to where the people are and have appropriate conversations. I concur.
Great. Um, TJ, this has been phenomenal, man. I just just laying a groundwork for my personal podcast and the project that I'm working on, and having this be the start of that conversation. Um, I'll be talking to so many more folks going forward, but man, this is brilliant, and I hope a lot of people listen to this because you got to start taking this stuff seriously. I mean, this eh, talking to you. was great because you're not you're not a doom and gloom guy. You're not talking about how the sky is falling and everything is going to implode and we got to go now. We got to go now. It's having those kind of conversations. You're like, all right, man, just calm it down a little bit. We're talking to normal people here. You've brought um, some very clear problem sets that are happening in the world that are very likely going to happen in the world based on strong indicators and assessments and and it's important for people to start digesting this slowly because this is going to be a shock to a lot of people, but you got to start taking this seriously. You've got to start having the conversations in your communities. You've got to start meeting those people and you're not going to do it overnight. It's okay. There's going to be people that have more background in this stuff or are more skilled at maybe making those connections. Maybe it's not you, maybe it's your spouse, maybe it's your kid. Maybe you have an 18-year-old kid who's very extroverted and he makes friends with everybody and he's going to pull everybody in. It doesn't necessarily have to be you or everything. Uh, and and so this conversation is an important base and it lays the foundation for how people can get into this space and how they can start thinking. Just start thinking. Start working through what you've heard here, what you've heard everywhere else, what you're seeing on the news, and say, hey, if I want to make sure that my family uh, exists tomorrow, we have no promise of tomorrow, first of all. We have today, and that's it. Anything could happen. You could get hit by a car. But in the event of some sort of contingency or calamity or whatever, knowing that, all right, you started to work through these problem sets and you've started to store some stuff back. You've started to put some stuff aside. You started to focus on your immediate ring, and then you've worked out in those concentric rings like you talked about. And you said, okay, I'm going to start seeing who else is out there. I'm going to start doing my area studies. And it doesn't have to be an all intensive and exhaustive effort that you make. It can just be done in a day-to-day regimen where you start to live this stuff and start to think this way, and that's what I'm encouraging you to do. So, TJ, any last words before we get out of here?
I appreciate you having me on. I would remind everybody who's listening, if you're a person of faith, we're commanded to fear nothing but the Lord our God. Okay. That's
Amen.
it. That's it. It doesn't mean, also in the Proverbs, the prudent man foreseeth evil and hideth himself, right? So you see a train coming at you, jump off of the tracks. Don't be afraid of the train. Just jump off the tracks before the train hits you. And if you ever have me back, I give you my word that I will be in a studio. I'm sorry for the background noise, but
No problem at all.
we're just over here doing the things, homie.
That's it. That's it. All right, brother. Well, thanks for coming on. And for the rest of you, we'll be back soon. But I hope you enjoyed this. Please share this with your friends. I've never said this on a show before, and I should have said it at the beginning, but hit the like and follow button and all that stuff and blah, blah, blah. And talk to you guys later.